This is episode 206 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Welcome to episode 206 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today, I have Darren Voros on the show, and Darren is a guy who I've been aware of for many, many years and just finally met him yesterday and had a chance to go deep with him on Costa Rica. So it was a really interesting and really different discussion. I haven't had any investors on the show where we just dove into Costa Rica. We've talked about a few other foreign places to invest, but this was a special one because he's specifically investing in an area that I love, which is Nosara, right near Tamarindo on the west coast of Costa Rica. If you've never been there, I highly recommend it. It's beautiful and extremely hot, but a well worth the trip. So we dove into what it looks like to develop land there. He's currently developing a couple of different sites, including a 6-unit building, which he'll be selling off many of the units and keeping a couple to operate as Airbnbs with several $100,000 a year in revenue coming off of those. And he's going to be mortgage free on them if all goes as planned. So really interesting story, really ambitious seeming guy with an interesting backstory. And I think you'll get a lot out of this one. Just before we jump into the episode, as always, I want to remind you that you can grab a copy of the cash flow spreadsheet analyzer on my website if you want to follow along and analyze numbers yourself. And you can also check out our deal analysis show on YouTube, which is called REI Hot Seat, where all we really do is deal analysis without the interview portion. So if that sounds like something you'd want to follow as well, make sure that you subscribe to that channel and get active in the comments on there, ask your questions. It's a new channel, it's growing, and certainly would appreciate the support. So without further ado, let's jump into episode 206 with Darren Voros. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I've got Darren Voros on the show, and we were just remarking how we don't know how we haven't met yet. It's been many years of, I think we're Facebook friends, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I see you in the groups commenting, and I'm sure vice versa, although I'm not very active on Facebook. But yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
I intentionally don't say too much before we start recording because I would rather just do it on the recording. Because then before you know it, we start saying things. We're like, we should have recorded this.
I had the same conversation yesterday. I was hosting my own session, and then we had a bunch of conversations prior to it. And I was like, well, we should have just been hitting the record.
Yeah, we should have recorded all of it. Which, like, if you watch Joe Rogan, for example, you could tell it's just like the guy will ask, "Is this recording? Or are we just shooting the shit?" Yeah, so I like it like that. So anyways, yeah, man, I'm assuming you're up to big things, but I really don't know.
It's it's been a crazy couple of years, I would say, from the start of the pandemic to now. It's because at the time I was an active real estate investor, but I was working on some smaller projects, and since then I think I've looked at a lot bigger transactions and kind of sort of carved out a niche in the development world, and gone south to Costa Rica and doing some other things. So yeah, it's
doing
definitely
development in Costa Rica, or just
development in Ontario, in Costa Rica. Yeah, and then
I love Costa Rica, man.
Yeah, me too.
Pineapple, papaya.
Yeah, I've got another 10 days and then I'm heading south for the winter, so I'll be gone for 3.5 months. So that was something that I was really wanting to figure out in my life, and so that was a big goal of mine, was to spend winters away from Canada, because I can't stand it here. Yeah,
it's terrible.
So it's
Southwestern, I've said this before, Southern Ontario and the Golden Horseshoe, I don't think God intended for us to stay here in the winter. It's beautiful other times. He meant for us to migrate, I think.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I'm from Alberta, which is even worse.
Colder, but more sun.
Exactly. Yeah.
So at least you would have that. But okay, so you warmed up a bit here, and you live on the east end now of Toronto?
West end, in the Junction.
Oh, West end. Okay, no, that's much quicker. I was thinking East end.
Yeah.
Okay, so not too far away from here, but you're going to be headed down and spending time in Costa Rica. Whereabouts?
In Nosara. So.
I love that place.
Yeah.
I've specifically stayed in Nosara before.
Yeah, it's I visited there. Oh man, it's been 10, 12 years ago now for the first time. Yeah. And I was there for a week first time. Second time I went down, it was 2 weeks, and then for my 40th birthday, which was a few years ago, went down for a month and visited 4 or 5 different spots. But I kept going back to Nosara, and then last year I spent 2 months there, and then I bought land there, and so this year I'll spend the entire 3 months there. It's
pretty popular, people buying land there. A lot of Americans and Canadians buying land in that area, and I'm assuming others too. do they find? Like, are they successfully finding contractors to build?
You know, that is probably the number one. Well, I'd say it's the number two challenge down there is you know, finding good, reputable builders. There are many, but you know, just a matter of what you're going to pay price per square meter for somebody who is reputable. It's going to be significantly higher than if you want to kind of take your chances with somebody who's less known. But that
I think they like to look at, you know, foreigners there and dollar signs in the eyes.
For sure,
and like you're way more likely to get scammed in Costa Rica than you are here in Canada. Like
100%.
We were victims of it. We called them out on it, but
well, and I like what I saw the last time I was there, because I was visiting an active job site, which I found was really interesting, was they have the workers like living on site, which was kind of crazy to me. Like literally 4 walls, a tin roof, tin walls, and I was like, visiting the site, I'm like, what is this? Is this where they eat lunch? And the architect was like, no, this is where they live. So they are from San Jose, but there's not a lot of work in San Jose, not a lot of quality work. So they come, they don't want to pay rent while they're working there. It's more effective for the project because they work 6 days a week, but the you know, the living conditions from our standards would be like, great. No way. But for their standards,
I mean, it's warm there.
It's warm. Yeah, there's no
as
issue.
long as you're good with the heat, because it is like, it's warm hot. Is an understatement. It's like melt you hot, especially during the day. I don't know how they work during the day. In
the dry season, it's like 35 degrees pretty much like every day.
And like the sun, like I've never felt sun like that. It's like it's intense. It's chasing me.
Well, you go down to Playa Guiones, which is the main beach there. In the middle of the day, there's like no one there.
They won't do it
from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. not a soul on the beach. They come
out after that,
and then people will come out after that to surf, and they're there in the morning and they're there at sunset, and that's kind of it, because in the middle of the day there's not a lot of shade and it's hot.
It's interesting how it's just different depending on where you go. One thing I've noticed, like they must have a very like for building, because you don't want to work midday. And then you only have so much sunlight, right? They only have 12 hours of sunlight there.
Yeah, it's dark at like
at 5:30. Yeah,
it's like pitch black.
And they don't have great street lights or anything.
No, so. Non-existent.
It's an interesting place. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite places in the world.
So is that an investment play? That's
we're building 6 luxury homes down there. So
6 luxury homes. So tell me about like the development process. Does it have similarity to here? Is it fee simple ownership? Like what's the scoop?
There are some similarities, I think. You know, the difference is they don't really have zoning per se. So they have some basic parameters around what they would like you to build. You know, but it's not like they have a very specific zoning bylaw. So they basically say, like, ideally it's 50% lot coverage. Nosara has, rules around height. So no more than 2, I think it's 2 or 3 story.
Got to assume that town has more rigid rules than, say, some of the, like...
Tamarindo or something like that, right? Which has, like, all the hotels and everything like that. So Nosara is protected in a way because it's national park. There's an area by the beach that's protected because of the turtles. And that's also, they don't want a lot of light, pollution, and all those kinds of things. So that's why they don't allow you to go more than, I think it's 3-story. But most people don't build over 2-story. And but other than that, like the development process is similar. You know, you have to go in for some environmental studies, and you have to figure out, is there enough capacity for water and sewer, and what's your septic system going to look like, and all of those studies need to be presented.
So they still want to see properly engineered studies and stuff.
And then, but the biggest challenge there is water, right? You need a water letter. And once you've got your water letter, then you can get your building permit. So that's kind of the first step.
What's a water letter?
Basically, they want to know if you have enough water, if the municipal water supply can meet the demand of your development, right? Oh. So that's the biggest hurdle, and that's why you'll see many projects in Costa Rica, they'll get stalled because they have water rights, but they don't necessarily have the capacity for the water, or they haven't checked with their local ASADA, which is like the name for the the municipal water control board, basically. Oh, okay. So you need that in order to get a building permit. If you don't have a water letter, you can't get a building permit. So that's your big challenge in Costa Rica. And then, of course, obviously, if you don't have power to the site, but we're in Playa Pilata, which is already serviced for those things. There's water at the property line. There's electricity at the property line, but even that, you don't have rights to that water just because it's at your property line. You have to apply to make sure that there's enough capacity there. So that's. Is there
anything that you can do? Like, how do you approach one of those projects and make sure that you have enough? Do you just pick an area that has ample supply?
I think that, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You basically can go in and what we did on this project, we went in for less density.
This episode is brought to you by Control and Compound Financial. They teach real estate investors how to multiply their wealth using infinite banking strategies. For a complimentary wealth coaching session or to learn more, visit www.controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines. Are you interested in getting started in investing in the United States but not sure where to start? Why not attend the Investing in the U.S. Mastermind hosted by myself and Nick Van Dyke on March 4th, 2023. Nick and I will be covering topics ranging from A to Z, new construction, multifamily development, Airbnb, and much, much more, as well as the basics, including opening a bank account and understanding the proper corporate structure. We'll have several keynote speakers touching on very specific topics. And most importantly, you'll be sitting in a room with people who are highly focused and highly committed to investing in the United States. For more information, visit investingintheus.com and send me a DM on Instagram for a special discount code. I'll look forward to seeing you at the event. Hey friends, I just wanted to remind you that the next GTA West REI meetup is happening Thursday, January 19th at Clifford Brewing in Hamilton. If you're not already in our private Facebook group, make sure you join through the link in the description of this video or in the show notes on the audio versions, and add yourself to the event to let us know that you're coming so that we can notify the establishment and make sure that they have the proper staff for our group. Don't miss out on this completely free opportunity to network with like-minded investors. It's always an uplifting event and it's always a lot of fun. I'll look forward to seeing you there.
Right. So if we're looking at the projects around us, we're saying, okay, well, this project up the road just got declined, or it's been in trying to get a water letter for 2 years because they went in for, I think it was 40 occupants on a 750 square meter piece of land. Okay. So we're going in for the same 40 occupants, but we have 3,000 square meters of land. So four times the land with the same amount of occupants. Now, this project just got its water letter approved after 2.5 years.
So you've been working on this for 2.5 years?
No, they have. But
they did.
We've only been in talks for a month with the water authority. So we went in with less density, and we asked them first what they wanted to see. So we went to them first, to the water authority, and said, what do you want to see? What kind of density do you want to see on the lot? They said 40 occupants. And they said as minimal impact on the land as possible, right?
There's the obvious thing to do is just talk to them beforehand. Don't just surprise them with it. Talk to them ahead of time, which seems like common sense, but I mean...
You would think, but I think a lot of developers are used to developing in North America or in Europe, and then they go, well, they don't think about water. They're like, how much capacity can we put on the land?
Although I've encountered sewage capacity. Yeah. Like you got to make sure that there's sewage capacity to service, and that is a common thing. Yeah. So for sure. I haven't heard of water main, but I mean, I'm sure that exists too as an issue around here. Yeah. Everything could be an issue. Yeah. Exactly. Before you know it, you're the developer tearing up an entire street and putting in a new sewer main.
Yeah. And I think so that's kind of the process down there. It's like, we're going to get this water study done. It's going to say that we don't have enough capacity with the current supply. And then they're going to say, okay, well, you have to pay to help us upgrade the infrastructure, which I'm happy to do, right? Yeah. Because it's not, a crazy amount of money, especially in relation to the development that we're doing there. So
so that's obviously the next question is it worth it? And let's get into some rough numbers. Like what did you buy the land for? 3,000 square meters?
1.2 mil.
What's that in acres? 3,000 square meters?
It's about 3/4 of an acre.
3/4 of an acre. Yeah. Okay. So 1.2 mil for that. And what do you think you'll get into for like soft costs and then to build?
Yeah, soft costs will be in for probably about $500,000 in soft costs.
Oh, so not cheap.
Yeah.
All right.
No, it's not. See, the soft costs in Costa Rica are based on hard costs. So architects aren't paid on
it's a percentage of cost.
Exactly. So if the project
you hired an architect?
Yeah. So we're already down the process there. And our build cost will be around $2 million, somewhere in that range.
$2 million. Yeah. So including the architect's fees?
No, that's hard costs.
And then
construction costs.
So what do you think the architect's going to be if you're $2 million?
So the $500,000 was including the architectural fees.
Okay. So 3.7 plus your carrying costs. Yeah. Like insurance and then any interest in borrowing?
Not really, because we have investor capital in on the deal. And then we'll use the pre-construction funding to build the project. So that is a nice benefit of Costa Rica as well. I can take the deposit structures and line them up with the construction draws because we can use that money to fund the construction.
So you're taking the money you raise here from investors to fund it?
No, that's just to acquire the land and the closing costs.
So you're getting financing down there?
No, we won't need financing because we'll sell enough units to pay the construction.
Selling. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was the part I was missing.
Yeah, sorry, we kind of skipped over that. But we'll sell 4 of them and we'll keep 2 as short-term rentals moving forward. Okay,
so building 6 with 40 occupants. So what does that work out to? How many people
per house? 4 3-bedroom units.
Okay,
and then 2 4-bedroom units. We were debating between going with 8 units and going with some.
But where do they come up with 40 occupants?
That's what we said. We're like, well, how did you come up with that number? And I think they just look at maybe the capacity for the land.
They assume 3 people per bedroom or something?
They assume 2 people per bedroom.
2 people per bedroom.
Yep. So they were saying 20 bedrooms. They said you can decide on how
you get 20 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the 20 bedrooms, would try to make it minimal impact on the land. So more units is going to be more impact, right? So that's why we went with larger units.
Yeah.
Plus we looked at the stats for Airbnb and everything else.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of 1 bedrooms, a lot of 2 bedrooms, not so many 3 bedrooms, and I think there's 7 4 bedrooms or something.
Okay.
Something like that. It's a small amount of units on the market.
Rush down there with Airbnb.
Yeah.
The figures you're giving me, are those in Canadian dollars?
US dollars.
US dollars. Okay, and what do you think? So you're in for like 3.7.
Yeah.
What do you think it's worth?
So we'll sell the 3-bedroom comps right now are about $1 million a unit.
Really? So you're like 5 to 6 million for the whole thing?
Yeah. And the 4-bedroom comps are about 1.5. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So there's over $1 million in profit there, probably maybe $1.5 million, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so not a bad day at the office once it's all done.
Yeah, and I think that's why, looking at this, and I love my partners on this deal, but I was like, on the next one, I might just look at raising private debt versus private equity, because I could take that, sell 3 or 4 units, pay back the private debt, and then I would own the other ones free and clear, which is what we're doing on our other project, which is our, we have a 16 unit just up the road in Playa Flamingo as well.
Okay, so you're doing more as well.
Yeah.
Similar structure with that one, or that
one's a little bit different. We didn't bring in investors. The land was a lot less, so I think we bought the land for $500,000. So we did that with just me and 2 other investors.
And how are you raising? Like, what's your network to raise the funds for these?
That's through my network, through people I've met in the industry, in the business, and
so just making phone calls, kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, all of these have to go through a Canadian limited partnership agreement, which is so we had to go, either friends and family or accredited investors. Yeah. So we had to work under the exemptions. But just went out to my network, and this was actually, we would have put our minimum higher for this deal than we have for any other deal. And it was actually easier to raise capital, I feel like, for this than I was.
What was your minimum?
It was 150,000 US.
Okay.
So
150 US. Oh, okay. So over 200.
Yeah, which I was like I say, I was quite surprised. It makes it a little bit easier because I only needed
way easier. Yeah.
Yeah, I only need like 6 or 7 people to step forward. And I think the payback with capital within 24 to 36 months is a big selling feature right now, right?
That's the horizon you're figuring?
Yeah.
So when did you close on this?
In late September. Yeah.
Late September. So not too long ago.
Yeah.
And then you're figuring 36 months they get their money back.
Yeah, ideally faster.
What's the exit? So you're saying sell 4 and that allows you to keep the other 2?
That's right. Free and clear. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then we'll run those as STRs. And then they'll get
with a partnership group in.
Yeah, they'll get their distributions from the STRs.
And those should do what, a couple $100,000 each?
Yeah,
an annual.
Sure. Yeah,
because you'll have 6 months of the year where they crush, and then 6 months where there's not really much.
Yeah,
going on.
you'll say 70% of the year occupancy, so that it's a lot higher actually now than it used to be. The shoulder seasons
they have
are
rain season, right?
Rainy season's terrible. Like you won't rent anything in rainy.
What's
season.
Rainy season there?
September, October. Like
That's
even
it?
Costa Ricans are like, I'm out here. they're gone.
Oh, it's just September? I thought it was longer than that.
No, August is like, not great. November is okay, but you'll have people that are there. I was there in probably 3 weeks ago, and you can, I was the very, very start of November, and you're seeing people start to arrive. But really, the big season is after American Thanksgiving, all the way through until like May long weekend, and that's your like prime season. That's
and then the rain starts to come in the summer at some point.
It starts to come in that like May June time.
But not like crazy.
But not like crazy.
Yeah.
And you're actually like waiting for it because it's so dry there.
The dust there. we rented an ATV and we went from Nosara to I think Tamarindo. I think we did. Was it that far?
Samara, maybe? Samara,
yeah. We went to that really cool beach with all the palm trees hanging over the water. Yeah, that's
about a 45 to an hour on the quad, probably.
Yes. Yeah. That's what we did. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. Really hot, really dusty.
So dusty.
It's crazy. We were passing transport trucks on the quad.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part because we were going faster than all the cars and transport trucks because it's just so bumpy.
It's the best way to get around there, for sure.
Yeah, everything's
I
so
rent
bumpy.
one while I'm down there for 3 months. I have a quad, and
it's just the best.
Yeah. No helmets. It's kind of crazy.
You get a dust mustache and stuff, but it was a good time. So I can imagine though, if you get there right after the rain, it doesn't have to be quite so dusty.
No, it was actually nice in November. Like it was because it's end of rainy season, so everything's lush. It's green. And there's no dust. But the other side of that is like just all the roads are half washed out.
Just muck
puddles everywhere.
Because even when we were there in March, it was not this March, but it was like flooded out roads. Like we couldn't pass some of them. We had to turn around. Yeah, I can only imagine at the end of rainy season what it was like.
It's crazy. The street where my development is, like it's kind of turns into a river in the rainy season almost. Like it's
so you have to make sure your house is nice and elevated.
So we're filling in the land to elevate a little bit, and we'll actually create drainage ditches around the property. Okay. Because it's we're at one of the lower spots on the way to the ocean, so of course everything flows.
Yeah, everything flows
ocean. Out. We'll take into consideration all that when we're building.
And what's like, what are some of the risk factors down there? I mean, obviously, like Florida, you get hurricanes. Do you have issues down there?
They'll get the odd one. Definitely not to the scale and scope of some of the other areas. Like Costa Rica doesn't get hit with hurricanes as often as like the Gulf does. But it's not to say that they can't happen. Earthquakes, they've had a few, that are not crazy, but they're a definite thing you need to be aware of. But that's why I think with this style of construction that we are doing, we're only going 2-story. It's all cement and concrete and everything. There's no real like
you're hiring engineers to help design it.
Yeah.
So it can tolerate that kind of stuff, right?
And we're not on the water. We're about a 5-minute walk to the beach, so there is some protection there in terms of like if you're right on the coast, it's definitely a different
risk factor.
Risk factor for sure. But I mean anything can happen, right?
Well, and your Pacific coast versus versus the Atlantic side. I'm sure that helps a bit. The hurricane would have to go quite a bit over land to get to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Now, that's obviously not where you started in your investing journey, although very cool. I mean, I want to get into like kind of where you started as well. But actually, before we do that, tax implications and just a general idea of some of the structure that you're using for Costa Rica.
And that's a great question because that was something that I wasn't exactly aware of until we started going down the road with these projects, and I was like, I need to bring in some cross-border experts to really understand what the implications of all of that income are and how that's treated. So the best structure, is to basically set up the way that we did it was setting up a Canadian limited partnership, which has a Canadian corporation attached to it, and the Canadian corp owns 100% of the Costa Rican corporation. Okay. And the Costa Rican corporation, obviously, that's what the asset is owned.
So your limited partnership owns a corporation in Canada, which owns a corporation in Costa Rica?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And then so when income, the first initial like $1.2 million of capital that flows back to Canada will flow back as a repayment of debt for the investors, right? So there's no tax implications there. Once we start generating revenue, then we'll have to pay Costa Rican tax through the corporation. We'll have a withholding tax when we bring that money back to Canada. and then we'll distribute it through the limited partnership after that. And then once we've filed our Costa Rican taxes, those withholding taxes will be adjusted. So it is a bit of a complicated withholding structure.
So you're saying when you try and do like a wire transfer from your Costa Rican account back to Canada, they're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
There is a wait a minute moment?
Yep, for sure. Like anytime we move money back and forth, it is a little more complicated. Just closing on the property was incredibly complex in terms of the know your client stuff from the Costa Rican banks. Like you can't just move. I think $50,000 is about the limit. So when we're moving $1.2 million in U.S. currency down to the Costa Rican banks, the process for getting that money vetted was significant. So we had to add extra due diligence time to make sure that all of our investors could be vetted individually, so that when they moved money to the LP and we moved it to Costa Rica, there wasn't
they
any
wanted
hiccups,
to see all the track record.
everything.
The banks that were receiving it wanted to know where it was
so
coming from.
there's an escrow company in Costa Rica that will work on behalf of the banks, and once they have all their documents, they'll submit them to the bank. The bank will say, yes, we accept all this, now you can move the money, right? So that was part of the process of closing.
Probably because there's a lot of criminal activity in Costa Rica.
Yeah. I don't think there's that much criminal activity, but I think that's why there's not as much, because of the...
Yeah, obviously they're combating off some stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think it's like Mexico and some of these
No,
other areas.
it's not Mexico. Not a criminal haven. Obviously, like that was one of the worries that like we had when we went down. We're like, well, is it dangerous? And people are saying, oh no, it's fine. Just don't go wearing a gold Rolex around.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, we felt totally fine aside from the like one, it was like a little bar or restaurant that they're like, oh, they don't speak English, and they just decided that they would tell us the Interac machine was down and that we had to pay cash, and all of a sudden the bill was 4 times what it was last time.
Interesting. I've never had an experience like that there. Like, I've heard like there's a petty crime things, especially in Nosara. Never heard of violent crime.
I haven't seen much of that.
And I was talking with a friend about this yesterday, and we're like, he said, and he's from El Salvador, Alfonso Quadra. And he was like, you know why there's no crime in Costa Rica? You know why there's no problems in Costa Rica? I'm like, no. He's like, they don't have an army. And I was like, oh, I never thought about that. Like, they've never been at war with any other country, and so there's a lot of that. And that kind of that transpires down into the communities. There's just not.
Interesting.
They don't have that sort of mentality. But there's people will steal the odd thing, and which is I've heard about here and there, and I've heard about people. Like you say, being taken advantage of a little bit, maybe with like currency exchange or we take cash only, that kind of stuff. But that happens almost everywhere.
I think a lot of people wouldn't have even noticed. They would have just assumed it was nothing. These people were just silly because they must have recognized us. I had been there like 2 days earlier. I knew what we ordered the same meal. But we called them on it. So anyways, it was okay. Okay. So as far as tax goes, is it a tax treaty country?
No. Yeah.
So you'll pay a corporate tax there. Do you know approximately what the tax rate is?
It's about 15%.
So 15% tax there, and then you would pay when you bring dividends back to Canada. It'd be the active would be an active income tax rate. Yeah, and then you'll get a tax or a dividend tax credit. Yeah, and then take it out personally.
Exactly. Yeah, okay. And then it'll flow out to the limited partners in the form of source revenue kind of thing. Yeah.
So it's not the most simple thing ever, but obviously, when you get into a couple $100,000 per unit in Airbnb revenue plus the profit in the deal, that obviously gives some incentive to go through the potential, extra work.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the idea for me was this wouldn't be the only project, right? I think if you're doing one project, then keep doing it. Yeah, there's more of a simple structure in other places. But I think if it's like multiple projects and you get economies of scale, then I think that's where it becomes,
So I guess I had another question I was going to ask you about. So the market, what's happening here? What are you seeing there?
It's definitely slowed down a little bit. The last time I was there, when I was there last year, I mean, there was nothing on the market because everything was getting scooped up. There's still very limited supply there in terms of it's just a very small area. So there's not a lot of land. There's not a lot of opportunity to build. So that is still we're seeing the same things we're kind of seeing here, right? Supply and demand is still very much in the favor of low supply, still high demand. But pricing was getting a little bit like people were putting stuff on the market and it was, going into multiple offers and, 20-30% over their asking price. It's just they're not seeing that now. They're just seeing it's a pretty balanced market with, you know, a good amount of buyers, a good amount of sellers, and but you know, the pricing hasn't really come down much at all. And I think if you're looking to move something quickly, you might have to be a little bit more aggressive on your pricing there. But you know, I don't think
it's still staying a lot more steady.
Yeah.
Have they had the boom there that we've seen here in Canada?
Yeah, it was
same type of boom.
I was there 10 years ago, and you know, it was like the cost of real estate there was significantly lower. I mean, you know, it's always retrospect's always 2020, hindsight's always 2020, but you know, I think that's where you look at the increases year over year over the last probably 5 years, and it's probably been close to 15-20% annualized, you know, increases, which is that's a big jump in the price point there.
Okay, so do you think, though, I mean, I guess you got to kind of look at the economic factors. A lot of the people who are playing in that sandbox, so to speak, are very well off, well-to-do.
Yep.
You know, do they need their second home? Do they need to vacation there? Maybe, maybe not. But then again, there's also, like, that's such a highly desirable area, and it's so small.
There's no vacancy. Like, you know, some friends were trying to come down this year to visit me, and they're like, I literally can't find anything for less than $300 or $400 a night. So
it's so expensive. It's
I
insane.
think that actually that's who will end up being our end users. It won't be somebody who's going to use it for 2 weeks of the year or 3 months of the year. It'll be another investor that says this makes sense as something that's going to generate a 12 to 15% cash on cash return, and just and maybe I get the benefit of using it as a short-term rental as well when I want to take my family down for 2 weeks, but in the remainder of the year it's generating enough income to you know, more than support the debt for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, so can you get loans as a Canadian down there?
You can. I mean, if you were purchasing a unit, like one of our properties, anything over $150,000 US, you can apply for residency.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you can get residency, then you can get, you know, Costa Rican bank account, and you can deal with the
So you need residency. So you have residency down there?
I will get it, yeah.
Do you have like a tax ID that you have to get?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's what allows you to get the bank accounts?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's, you know, but you know, you're going to pay, it's a different interest rate than what we're paying here. Well, not that different anymore, but you know, you're looking at probably 9 to 11% on a standard like residential loan there, right?
And are they a Commonwealth country?
No.
I
don't think so. That's a good question.
Yeah, like is it fee simple ownership? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah, like closed with lawyers or a title company, or
it's they're closed with lawyers, with not with a title company though. I don't.
Well, if it's lawyers, they wouldn't use a title company.
Yeah,
they might have title insurance.
Yeah, there's title. Yeah, there's title insurance, but it's all closed with lawyers. Yeah, and like I say, the escrow company and the lawyers work closely together there. So it's the same sort of like tied into the same transaction, and
it's a similar process to here.
Yep. Yeah, very similar.
Yeah, feels like that's kind of the way the world works. Okay, so any other things like worth noting about that experience and like lessons you've learned, things that kind of came up as unexpected?
Well, on our other project in Playa Flamingo, I think we haven't received our water letter yet, and that's, you know, well, actually that's not true. We have approval for 10 units there, and we want to go for 16, right? So we're kind of going back and forth with the municipality and trying to, you know, increase the density there. But I think that's been the biggest learning for me, is just like reverse engineering it, as opposed to going in as a developer and saying, oh, I want this and this and this. It's like, go to the water authority, see what they want to see on the property, and hopefully that expedites your journey and everything else. Because I think, you know, time is the biggest factor in most developments, right? If you can get to market in 18 to 24 months versus getting another 5 or 6 units and it takes you another 2 years, I don't know. To me, the cost benefit there is not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I think so much can happen, especially in today's changing market, and in even 2 years. So I agree. Yeah, faster is better. For sure. Even on my Florida builds, like, you know, they're not even a year, but it's too long.
Yeah. And that's why I like Costa Rica too, because you can, if everything's in order, you can move pretty quickly there, right? Like, it's basically straight to building permit. There isn't really, you know, site plan approval or anything like that. It's
so
like,
as long as you're doing what they want, they'll say, okay, let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
Which makes sense. That's similar to like unorganized or poor, like, I'm not gonna say poorly, but like lesser organized municipalities. even here, like things move quicker. You know, they have less people, less rigid process. Oh, that looks about right. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I think like St. Thomas, for instance, like they didn't really have hard and fast rules for the, like last time I really looked at them closely, and you know, it was more like, well, come in and have a conversation. If you like it, you'll be doing it. If not, well, you won't.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, hey, that's good to know, and it would make sense. Like I would expect it to sort of be like that down there. But the interesting thing is, like, if you go even 20 minutes north of Nosara, like it's just tin huts.
Yep.
Like, can you develop up there, or is the reason people aren't developing up there is because they can't get water?
I think it's a mix of both. I think that there's, most of the more rural areas, they're just not as sought after, right? So the real estate values would be significantly less, but so would the rental.
But if the infrastructure was there, I feel like you could say, beautiful 3-bedroom on the ocean, 20 minutes from Nosara.
Oh, and there's lots of that kind of stuff happening, right?
Yeah.
If you look at, it's the ripple effect. It's the same thing that happens in every other popular place. It's like, well, eventually people can't afford it there, so they start to move out.
Well, I'm imagining that these tin huts don't have running water, right? Like it's kind of like just poverty, right?
Or they have drilled a well, right?
They've drilled a well.
So you can get a well in Costa Rica. It's no problem.
But as a developer, they're not going to let you do that.
They're not going to let me do it. It's too close to everything else. You have to have a certain amount of radius around your well, and we would just be like
pulling from the neighbor's water.
Exactly. Yeah. And then so you have to use the water supply in that situation, the municipal water supply. But if you get out of that area, but power is an issue, right? Bringing power in. But now solar's changing.
Yeah, I was about to say, like
there's
solar would change that completely. Like you could just, especially because of the amount of sunlight they get and how intense it is.
It's crazy.
Yeah, you could. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just be about rainy season, and if you don't get enough sun, then but I mean, you probably need a lot less sun at that point too, because it's probably not as hot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so very interesting. I would much prefer that weather to ours right now.
I'm counting down the days.
Yeah, well, lucky you. I can't figure out how to go, 3 hours with my son, let alone, go to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Do you have kids?
I don't know.
No. Okay. Well, that makes
it makes it a lot easier.
Makes that kind of thing go easier.
Yeah.
Okay. So, where did you start? Because we have a lot of mutual acquaintances. My partners that are in our campground. You said you stayed at the campground. I
stayed there this summer. Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
In one of the tents?
Yeah, in one of the glamping tents.
Nice. What'd you think?
It was great. I was like, I've done a lot of tent camping before, and I grew up like RV camping in Alberta. So I feel like this was like the happy medium. It was like you don't have to pack all this crap and go, the tent and all this stuff. And we went for 2 nights.
Yeah. That's
so literally we packed a cooler and we went up and had 2 amazing nights. It was a lot of fun. So, and it was so nicely set up. Like it felt so civilized, and we had that camping experience.
You're still camping, but not really. Yeah.
Exactly. What do people really want to do? They want to make a hot dog and eat some chips and drink beer and have a campfire and then sleep outside. So it hits all those boxes, but you have to literally bring a cooler and you get to sleep in a bed. So it was perfect. You guys did a great job up there. Your staff was so amazing. And treated us really well, and it was clean. It was everything was on point. So.
An unpaid endorsement here. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I've been recommending it to a lot of people.
I appreciate that.
Spend a couple nights. It's perfect.
Yeah, we've been growing, but it's growing pains too. We got our management team coming back next year, so we're optimistically looking forward to a full year's run up this year, because last year we were started mid season, so the big difference there. So enough about that though. About you, like when did you start? Like what's your background as a career?
Yeah, I started in 2002 was when I bought my first property. I don't think I was an active real estate investor until about 2007. I started buying stuff as a sort of for the purpose of having rental income. But I spent 15 years working professionally in musical theater, and that was my world. So I was a singer, dancer, actor. I traveled all over the world doing that for a long time. And I worked in Japan for a year, and the money that I saved while I was over in Japan, I came back to Canada, bought my first property, continued to do theater, and then when I had enough money and I could qualify for financing again, I went and bought another property. And then I started getting into renovations, which I really enjoyed, because my schedule was conducive to it. I was doing theater at night, and on weekends and during the day I was like on site and kind of learning how to renovate and doing some sweat equity, and that was helping my projects along and definitely helping the finances of all that. And then, you know, at some point I was like, I like this real estate thing more than I like theater, or the theater industry was also kind of like changing a lot.
Yeah.
And
do you miss singing and dancing, or you still find time?
You know, I miss it when I go to see a show. I think when I go and see a show, I'm like, oh, I know what's going on backstage, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, as you can imagine, you're surrounded by, you know, very, you know, an eclectic group of people.
Oh, and they're passionate about what they do.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun for a job. But I think in terms of, you know, I didn't get a lot of time off. I was always working nights and weekends.
Oh yeah, that would have been brutal.
And it was so I didn't have a social life. It would be fun as
an expression, just not as a lifestyle.
So no, I don't do much of it now. But I think like, you know, the other things that I have in my life, you know, in terms of they kind of make up for that. You know, like the YouTube channel and doing stuff like this. Like you kind of feel that sense of like you're in the spotlight, if you will, and that kind of feeds that part of things. And when I used to travel and speak and all that stuff, that was kind of like that exchange of, you know, interacting
speaking
with
on real estate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I used to. So I played in a band for a long time. We played like Friday and Sunday nights at a bar. We were like the house band at the bar downtown London. It was like as I graduated university, and then, you know, a few years afterwards, and then did like an originals band for a while. Yeah. And then it just got to this point where it's like, oh, too much, you know, with work, and people are having kids, people quit, and it's just like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. What do you play?
I play guitar, sing, play bass and drums too, but primarily guitar. We just did a jam actually not too long ago, just for fun. I miss it though. I do. It's just like, you know, where to
I miss
find the
music,
time.
yeah, for sure. And like I do a lot of yoga, which kind of replaces dance. Yeah. You know, so I still get a lot of that in my life for sure, but it's just a very different thing. But yeah, no, I loved it. I loved that part of my life. I'm very glad that I was able to do that. But, you know, and then, you know, just shifting over to real estate and doing that full time was just being an entrepreneur was really, you know, kind of my passion.
So it was in your blood to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. Okay. And when was the point? Because obviously there was an active income to that. When you shifted into real estate, was it cash flow from your properties you were living off of? Were you flipping? What were you doing? Yeah,
I was using mostly the BRRRR strategy. And so, you know, kind of recycling capital, you know, because I was doing a lot of sweat equity, I would often be able to pull
working at your properties.
Almost everything that I had in. So that allowed me to kind of keep doing that. And then I got, you know, I started to launch my YouTube channel in 2020, I think, and got a little bit more of a presence in the community. And then I started going out and raising capital. And so that's when I started to probably scale and grow at a significantly different level. Because I was basically then at that point able to use other people's capital and contribute time and expertise and do all the things that I do now. So
like as far as BRRRRs go, like you were basically able to just live off of the extra money you were able to pull out?
Well, I like refi every once in a while and take, you know, a lump sum payment and, you know, and I always kind of had
what were you showing to
things.
The bank? What were you showing to the bank as active income? Because they obviously want to qualify you on something.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I've always had a couple like side gigs along the way, like from I think 2018 until 2021, I was with Keyspire. And I was speaking with them.
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
Right. So I was on there. I was one of their speakers on the
summits.
No, I was a preview speaker. So Scott McGilvery and myself, we were the preview speakers.
Oh, okay.
So I'd do the 2-hour free session. And then I was commissioned based on that.
And then they would buy into the weekend.
Yeah. So
and
everything
from there go into the full thing.
Exactly.
I used to speak at the summits. For like mortgage investing.
Yeah. So that you know, that was a decent income and allowed me to continue to do real estate. On the side. So there was like a couple things like that. I was an energy auditor for a while, and you know, so there's a couple little like active income things that I had.
Just do that on the side. Yeah, cause just to kind of satisfy the bank and not need to pull from your investments. Like that was a big thing for me. Like why I started doing active construction for hire was just to not need to sell every property to make the money. You know, like to flip properties. I'd rather keep the properties and then you know, make active income.
Yeah. So that's kind of what kept things moving. And now in our developments, you know, like I pay myself a salary from our development projects.
And that makes sense. Like that. So you're putting in the sweat equity and, you know, kind of getting paid for it accordingly. Yeah.
We, you know, acquisition fees and
that's
management fees and stuff like that, you know.
So, I mean, that structure is something like in the circles we're in, you have these conversations, talk to people about how they structure this. Was this something that sort of happened organically? You know, obviously you're part of a mastermind. You probably shared this strategy. Like that probably, how much did that help you pull the trigger on doing these projects?
Oh, I mean, it was huge. It was like a light bulb moment for me that first of all, it allowed me to go to larger transactions because I was like, well, how do you charge an acquisition fee or a management fee on something where it's a $500,000 property? You can't do it, right? So then I was like, well, then you have to get into something that has enough meat on the bone that you can actually charge that the project makes sense to charge somebody to manage it full time, right? And so that's when I started looking at a larger price point, bigger transactions, more doors, more units, getting into active development. That was really the game changer in terms of, okay, I want to do this full time. I want to be dedicated. I want to actually have a staff of people that can do this. But in order to do that, I've got to get into a transaction that's big enough to support all of those things, right? And so that's where that shift and that change happened from the smaller transactions into the bigger transactions.
I love it. Yeah. Obviously, like, bigger transactions, like, to negotiate them, it's not really any more work, you have to do all the same legal processes, just bigger numbers. Are there extra zeros?
That's it.
It's of course you want to make sure you're dotting your I's, crossing your T's, and not over leveraging. Those are the key elements, but that can be done at scale
for sure.
Just a matter of how many equity partners you bring in, doing your due diligence on the deal. In terms of structuring, like, what's your ideal structure when you're looking at something like this from an equity play? You're looking for your investors to come in, put in everything it takes to acquire the land, pay the soft costs, and then from there, like, for instance, with this one, you sell the units and that pays your construction?
Yeah, I mean, in Costa Rica, yes, it's like land acquisition, soft costs, and closing costs kind of thing. And then once we get into construction, we'll pre-sell and we'll do that. In Canada, obviously the bank's going to step in and finance a lot of our projects.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
you do that structure here too?
Yeah, same thing. Basically, okay, we need investor capital to down payment, closing costs, carrying costs, and management fees kind of thing, right? And then on the takeout, that's going to be, depending on the transaction, there's going to be equity, left over that gets distributed back to the shareholders, or they're going to keep their, equity in the transaction, or, ultimately in the, with some of the new programs, we're hoping to basically pay out all of that, capital and kind of keep holding the building at that point. But
that's handy. I love that.
Yeah, that's that's what we're striving for right now with MLI Select, right? Going to 95% loan to value. We're really hoping to build a development that we can basically recoup all of our capital and hold it with no money and continue to have that building for a long time.
So can you give me an example of a Canadian project that you've done similar structure?
Yeah, so we have 4 active Toronto builds, one's complete, one is almost complete, one is just pouring foundations right now, and the other one is just coming at the end of site plan approval. So they're in kind of various different stages, but it's almost a cookie cutter, like very similar. They're all 8-unit buildings, all in the core of the west end of Toronto, and they're all very similar structure. Yeah. Okay,
so similar structure. You're bringing in investors, acquiring the land.
Yep.
They're paying the soft costs more or less.
Yep.
And then you'll step in with the bank and finance it once you get pre-sales?
No, we're holding them all as rentals.
Oh, holding them all. Okay, so you're financing it based on that with like a credit union or?
So yeah, we've done a couple different like acquisition structures. Yeah. So a couple of them were residential properties that we converted to 8-unit like boutique apartment buildings. So we were actually able to get residential financing on the front end, which was really helpful. And then we're just taking either private capital or construction private to do the construction phase, and then we'll take out with a new lender
at the end of it
on the CMHC
That's obviously
side.
The easiest way to do it. Private money is just so much easier.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Although I have heard from certain people who really like them that you can get these sweet deals with credit unions to finance your construction
our Dufferin project is with Alterna, so they're coming in to do the construction financing, and then they'll most likely they'll just switch over to a term loan.
So are they like interest only during construction?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So we didn't do we could have gone in for CMHC on the construction side as well, but it's a longer process, like 90 days is kind of what they were saying. So I was like, let's just for the percentage or percentage and a half savings on the construction loan.
Especially like in the competitive markets you were probably buying in, it's not easy to say, hey, we're going to need due diligence period. That they're not going to be into that.
Exactly.
So, and not advice, of course, to anybody, but I mean sometimes like as sophisticated investors just make the decision, okay, this is the way I'll go because I know my stuff and I know what I can do.
Yeah, we actually acquired it privately with private financing, and then we're switching over to construction financing, and then we'll carry that through to the takeout. Yeah.
Now, with all the changes in the market, like, does that change your feasibility on the units? Or, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say like condo units and apartment units haven't really changed that much.
There's a couple things that have happened. Obviously, we started doing these in 2020. And we went through the construction craziness, right? Where a cost of a 2x4 went from $3 to $10. Mm-hmm. So our construction budgets on the early
most
projects.
I paid was 15 actually. Not joking.
Lucky guy. Yeah,
Wish I was.
So I think like in our early projects we had underestimated our budgets for construction, but luckily when we went to do the takeout financing, we had this surge in rental income, right? Because of the rental market kind of went crazy. So, and the real estate market went crazy as well, right? So those ones kind of covered themselves. But now we're definitely in a better situation where we understand the full scope of the construction costs, and also we understand like on the takeout what that's going to look like, what we're able to get for financing. We've done enough of them, a couple of them now that we know that like, okay, this is where it's probably going to end up. And
so rent rates are up from what you were originally thinking. Cap rates are too. So sort of two opposing factors that are seemingly keeping prices relatively more stable than, say, on the residential housing side of things.
For sure. And we're dealing with, net operating income versus comparables, right? So that's always a nice thing in the commercial world. And we're not really in a position where we're interested in selling a lot of these projects. No. So we just, as long as we can hit our numbers,
financing, right?
Hit our takeout.
So you're lining them up to hopefully be in 75% loan to value or less, or 65%.
Yeah, we're trending right now at about anywhere between 70 and 80% loan to value, because we can't hit our debt coverage ratios to go to 95.
Yeah.
We're doing MLI Select on the back end.
Okay, so you're going to try and get...
So we're getting 50-year amortization.
50-year. Okay, so how are you doing that? Is that an energy efficiency, or is it like a like handicap accessible? Like what things are you doing?
It's a combination of a couple
many things. Yeah, I keep hearing that response.
The first two we did affordability.
Affordability. So you did
two basement units at the affordability.
That's it. That's all I had to do.
Because 2 out of 8, it's 25%.
So 25% affordable. Okay.
Yeah. And then the next two projects, we're doing a mix of efficiency and affordability. And our project in Kitchener will end up doing, I just talked to the brokers today, we'll do, again, a mix of affordability and efficiency. Yeah.
Okay.
So on a new build, it's pretty easy to hit the efficiency target. Like we're going 25% above the code.
And what are you doing? Are you doing centralized heating and cooling systems, or are you doing like heat pumps in units? Yeah. So every unit has its own heat pump, separately metered. Yeah. That is pretty handy for separately metering things.
Yeah. So that's the easiest way to hit it,
But are they that efficient? Like I've been crunching the numbers on heat pumps like crazy. It doesn't really seem like it's that efficient. Like it is, like relative to say propane right now, or you also baseboard heating, way more than that. Yeah. But I still think natural gas beats it.
Heat.
It does.
Yeah. It's a nicer form of heat, but I also think that it's a nice thing where in some buildings we don't even have to bring in natural gas anymore.
That's huge,
right?
Because just avoiding the issue. Yeah, and I think the hard thing with a natural gas boiler is you can't put it onto the tenants. No. Like you're not going to be able to submeter that.
Exactly.
So with this, you can actually truly get rid of the landlord's utility costs.
Exactly. Yeah. If we have heat pump and it's on their electrical panel, like they pay for their own heat, their own cooling, everything.
So the only thing you would be doing would be a water meter, like one central water meter, but then you can put submeters.
Yeah, we can submeter the water as well.
But that's administration, or you just charge them a flat fee.
There's a company now, and I have to look into this a little bit further, but on our Kitchener project, they'll come in and they'll submeter everything. And they'll pay for the cost of it, and then we have to use them for utilities. So okay. I'm looking into it, but it sounds like it's like
I know a submetering company as well, and they do offer a service and they will bill back. I haven't used that feature from them. I've just used the actual submetering part of it.
Yeah, it's new for me, so I'm kind of learning about it as well.
I think the easiest thing is run it and just figure out what your average cost is and then charge them a flat fee. This is your water fee.
Exactly.
And then you just take the hit if somebody leaves their sink on. For, I mean, what are you going to do? I guess that's the part that every landlord cringes at. But it's happened to me. I had somebody apparently fill a pool using the water from one of my student rentals. I called the water company, yelled at them. They said it's for real. And okay, I guess I pay to fill a pool this month. Anyway, so what are your thoughts on the market right now, and has that changed anything for you, knowing interest rates are seemingly continuing to climb and no real end in sight, although they say it's slowing down? It does appear to be slowing down in the increases.
Yeah, I mean, I heard on the way up here that they were kind of saying like we will look at the data moving forward to see if we need to.
Didn't they assure there was going to be one in January? I thought that was
what I heard last. It was kind of like the next one. There'll be another one in January, but after that, but so we're kind of getting mixed messages, I guess.
Oh, I mean, you can't trust anything they say. No, I mean, that's the same guy that said that they wouldn't raise interest rates back in 2020. Said they wouldn't raise interest rates until late 2023. You can rest assured, take all our government benefits and the cheap money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think like there's, I mean, we're approaching everything with a little bit of a cautious underwriting, I would say, right? Just making sure that we have contingency on contingency. Yeah. But I think that there's incredible opportunity right now, especially, I think development is one of those perfect opportunities right now because it's not something that hits the market in 6 months or 8 months.
Yeah,
like we are like our fastest development projects are like 2 years, maybe 3 years, right? So it's like if you're acquiring something now, it's going to be coming online in 3 years. And so like it's a very different, I think could be a very different environment in that time, good or bad, that's what we don't know. But I think from what I've seen, I've been in the industry a little while to see those like ups and downs. And so, I'm a believer in that. We're still in a huge housing crisis. We're still in a supply demand issue. Right. So that's
all they've done is artificially suppress demand. Exactly. The interest rates artificially suppress demand. Yeah. Bringing immigrants into the country pushes back the other direction. Yeah. These various different hedge funds that have said that they're going to start buying up residential real estate are probably looking very favorably at this and saying, hey, let's pick up some units. So there's going to be that force pushing back the other way. I say often that there's no precedent for raising interest rates and then dropping them quickly. Yeah. No. However, there's also no precedent for how fast they raised them, and no precedent for the competing factors that we have right now that I'm aware of. Yeah. So it's just tough to say what's actually going to happen. Yeah. But I do feel very confident that there are opportunities right now that are like once in a lifetime, and then there will be even more of those coming in the next 24 or 36 months. I agree. Yeah. That's kind of my feel on it. Yeah. So what's next for you then? Where are you focused? Is it Costa Rica here or a mix of both? I think I'm looking at options here in Canada still, but I love the international investing. I think that's I think from an investor's perspective, when I'm talking to investors, I think they really like the idea of owning real estate in some of these areas. So yeah, I'll continue to do development projects here, and I'll continue to do development projects in Costa Rica. And I think, I think the MLI Select program, like I say, is a bit of a game changer, and that's what we're really trying to hit, is that perfect. It's almost like the perfect BRRRR, right? Where you get all your capital out, and we're trying to do that on the multifamily side, and then just hold those assets as long-term rentals, because I still think it's a great play. So let's just summarize what MLI Select will do for you. Of course, it gets you the longer amortization. Yeah. You're going to go up to 50 years by hitting. You need X number of points to do that. 100 points to do that with them, with their point system. Yeah. And you'll get like a sub 5% on the rate. Yeah, we're getting quoted like high threes right now, 3.8. Still? Yeah. Because it follows the bond rates, right? Yeah, bond rates are roughly where they were in September. Yeah. I mean, shooting this now in December. Yeah. I haven't heard threes, I heard fours, but that's way less than people are getting regular with the bank. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, how much of a difference does it make to take something from 25 to 50? Like, we're talking huge difference. It's not cutting your payment in half, but it's probably what, like 60% of what it was, 65% of what it was. The downside is you're not paying down a lot of principal on the loan, but if you're planning to hold it for an extended period of time. Yeah. Well, and that's got value. That's assignable, right? You can assign that mortgage. Sure. Yeah. And forever on the renewals, even though they're 5-year terms, you're still like whoever renews, even if you sell it, they're renewing into the CMHC rate rather than the regular rate. That's right. Yeah. So they should foreseeably be a couple points under
Yeah. And they're non-recourse loans if you get to 100 points.
Yeah.
Which is,
non-recourse.
They can be non-recourse, which they did on our first one, which is huge. Nobody has to guarantee it.
Yeah, no one gets non-recourse loans.
I know, especially in Canada. Yeah, so that
in
that
the
was
US you do.
Yeah, but not here, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big factor as well.
Seems like the US, like their lending system, it just makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Like the 30-year term with a 30-year mortgage.
Yeah.
Versus we do a 30-year term or a mortgage with a 5-year term,
yeah.
which is pure insanity.
Yeah.
For exactly what's happening now.
Exactly.
Like
yeah.
think about the volatility that does to the market. All these renewals coming up. So
Yeah.
they don't have that problem there, which is why I'm so bullish on the US.
And it's why I keep hearing this over and over again, right? And it's like I've looked at the US and I it's something that I'm interested in, but it's just a factor of really not having enough capacity to look at
You're doing
everything,
enough.
right? Yeah,
you're doing enough. No, you gotta stay focused.
Yeah.
And I think there's lots of opportunities throughout the US, and it's really just a question of it's a buffet. What are you gonna pick?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm kind of doing my thing there right now, and I'm appreciating that these effects are seemingly less so far. Like Southwest Florida, where I'm invested. Way less severely hit by these effects compared to Ontario. So, I don't want to say knock on wood. I think that there are several reasons for that, and this is not to say that there's not huge opportunities in Ontario. I just think that it might be a good strategy to bring some profits back as things come down and use that to invest in. But anywho, so Darren, where do people find you and follow you?
Best place is either check out my YouTube channel or my website, darrenvoros.com for both of them. Darren Voros on YouTube and
darrenvoros.com. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I will include that in the show notes. And then any parting words of wisdom?
No, not today. I mean, I think just for me, I think there's like a lot of questions around the things you talked about today. It's like what's happening in the market, and I think just for people to not be so short-sighted on things. I think that there's that was one of the things that I got hung up on. I think when I first got started in real estate, and so you got to have a long-term outlook on things, and just 100%. Weather the storm a little bit. Things will straighten around for sure.
Yeah, I've been talking about this since we were in the bull market.
Yeah.
Don't buy in markets you don't want to keep in for a long time because you just never know. And hey, hopefully people who are following that advice are, obviously nobody likes their property going down in value, but if you got cash flow, hey, that helps you sleep at night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Wasn't too far of a drive for you, so and it's nice to finally meet you. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Please make sure to share this episode far and wide. Help it help more people. I really appreciate you tuning in. I'll see you on the next one. There are a lot of people out there talking about the infinite banking strategy and whether or not it makes sense for them. To find out what it's all about and if it's a fit for you, visit controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines, where my audience can gain exclusive access to books, podcasts, and webinars tailor-made for real estate investors. Are you interested in getting started in investing in the United States but not sure where to start? Why not attend the Investing in the U.S. Mastermind hosted by myself and Nick Van Dyke on March 4th, 2023. Nick and I will be covering topics ranging from A to Z, new construction, multifamily development, Airbnb, and much, much more, as well as the basics, including opening a bank account and understanding the proper corporate structure. We'll have several keynote speakers touching on very specific topics. And most importantly, you'll be sitting in a room with people who are highly focused and highly committed to investing in the United States. For more information, visit investingintheus.com and send me a DM on Instagram for a special discount code. I'll look forward to seeing you at the event.